There's a moment that happens quietly for many people as they get older. You start paying closer attention to what's on your plate. You read labels more carefully. You hear advice about cutting things out, especially salt, and you try to do the right thing for your health. That intention comes from a good place. It's rooted in care, responsibility, and a desire to feel well for as long as possible. But when it comes to salt after 60, the story is more nuanced than it's often presented. So today's conversation isn't about fear or strict rules. It's about understanding how salt actually works in the body as we age, why cutting too much can sometimes create new problems, and how balance matters more than extremes. As the body gets older, it changes how it regulates fluids, blood pressure, and electrolytes. The systems that once adapted quickly can become a little slower or less flexible. That doesn't mean they stop working. It just means they need steadier support. Salt plays a role in that balance. It helps regulate fluid levels, supports nerve signals, and assists muscles in contracting properly. Without enough sodium, the body can struggle to maintain equilibrium, especially during illness, heat, or periods of lower appetite. You may have noticed that advice around salt often sounds absolute. Cut it out, avoid it completely. Less is always better. But that approach doesn't account for how individual the aging body can be. Have you ever noticed that you feel a little off when you haven't eaten much, or when food tastes unusually bland? That feeling isn't just about preference. It can be your body signaling that something is missing. Low sodium levels, sometimes called hyponatremia, can happen more easily in older adults. This can lead to symptoms like fatigue, dizziness, headaches, confusion, or even balance issues. These signs are often subtle at first and easy to dismiss as just getting older. There's a common scenario that illustrates this. Someone decides to dramatically reduce salt, starts cooking everything without seasoning, and switches to only low-sodium products. At the same time, their appetite may already be smaller than it once was. Over days or weeks, they notice they feel weaker. Standing up feels harder. Concentration seems foggy. Meals become less appealing, so they eat even less. The issue isn't a lack of discipline. It's that the body isn't getting what it needs to function smoothly. What often gets missed in moments like this is how quietly the body adapts before it struggles. It doesn't send alarms right away. It sends small signals. A little less energy, a little less clarity, a little more hesitation when moving. Those signals deserve attention, not judgment. Sometimes those signals arrive during ordinary moments. A pause halfway up the stairs, a moment of lightheadedness after standing, a feeling that the day feels heavier than it should. These aren't failures, they're information. And when you listen to that information with curiosity instead of fear, you create space for understanding. The body isn't asking for perfection, it's asking for support. Many people assume that discomfort means they need to restrict further, when sometimes it means the opposite. Support, not subtraction, is what restores balance. But that doesn't mean high-salt diets are the answer. Excessive sodium can still contribute to high blood pressure and strain the heart in some people. The key is recognizing that salt isn't the enemy. Extremes are. Blood pressure guidance is a big part of why salt gets such a bad reputation. For some individuals, especially those with certain heart or kidney conditions, limiting sodium is important. But for many older adults, overly aggressive restriction can backfire. The aging body often becomes less efficient at conserving sodium. Kidneys may excrete it more readily. Medications like diuretics can also increase sodium loss. When intake drops too low at the same time, imbalance becomes more likely. Have you ever wondered why doctors sometimes recommend electrolyte drinks during illness, even for people who usually watch their salt? That's because sodium helps maintain circulation and hydration when the body is under stress. Hydration and salt work together. Drinking large amounts of water without enough electrolytes can dilute sodium levels. This is especially relevant in warm weather or during periods of reduced food intake. There's another quiet factor here as well. Taste. As we age, taste sensitivity can change. Salt helps food taste satisfying and familiar. When food becomes bland, people often eat less overall, which can reduce intake of protein, calories, and other nutrients. The fact is that food enjoyment matters. Pleasure in eating supports appetite, nutrition, and emotional well-being. Removing salt entirely can unintentionally take that away. There's a familiar moment many people experience when they've been trying to do everything right. A meal is prepared carefully, ingredients chosen with intention, but the flavor feels flat and unsatisfying. You finish eating, yet the sense of nourishment never quite lands, and later you find yourself grazing, snacking, or feeling oddly unsatisfied without knowing why. It isn't indulgence the body is missing in that moment, it's balance. When meals lose their appeal, appetite can fade or become unpredictable, and that can quietly affect energy, mood, and even hydration. Food is meant to nourish, but it's also meant to be enjoyed, and enjoyment plays a real role in how the body receives what you eat. Over time, repeatedly stripping meals of flavor can make it harder to meet your needs without even realizing it. These moments can be easy to brush off. Life moves quickly, and it's tempting to push through. But the body remembers patterns, and over time, those small moments begin to add up. Responding gently in those moments helps prevent bigger disruptions later. A balanced meal, a pause, a little seasoning instead of none. These are small choices, but they create steadiness. Rather than cutting salt across the board, a more supportive approach is awareness. Pay attention to how your body responds. Notice energy levels, clarity, and stability rather than focusing only on numbers. This kind of awareness builds trust with your body. It allows you to respond instead of react. Over time, that trust becomes one of the most valuable senior health tips there is. Quality matters too. Naturally occurring sodium in whole foods and lightly seasoned meals behaves differently in the body than heavy sodium from ultra-processed snacks. The context of the meal matters. This is why many senior health tips emphasize patterns instead of rigid rules. It's not about eliminating salt, it's about using it intentionally and appropriately. If blood pressure is a concern, the conversation becomes more personalized. This is where medical guidance matters. A healthcare provider can help determine whether sodium reduction is necessary and how much is appropriate for you. Have you ever noticed that health advice feels overwhelming when it's presented as one size fits all? That's because bodies aren't identical, especially as they age. Individual needs vary more, not less. Salt also plays a role in nerve signaling and muscle function. Very low sodium levels can contribute to muscle cramps or weakness, increasing fall risk. That's not something to ignore or simply brush off. Balance issues are often blamed on aging alone, but electrolyte imbalance can be part of the picture. Supporting stability sometimes means reassessing what's been removed, not just what's been added. Which brings us to another common moment worth mentioning. Someone experiences swelling or bloating and assumes salt is the cause. They cut it drastically, but the issue doesn't improve. In some cases, fluid imbalance or medications are the real drivers. And this is where patience matters. The body rarely responds well to sudden, extreme changes. It responds best to steady adjustments and thoughtful observation over time. A calmer, more grounded approach is to season food lightly, taste as you go, and notice how your body responds over time. This keeps meals enjoyable while avoiding extremes. It's also helpful to consider timing. During illness, heat waves, or periods of low appetite, sodium needs may increase temporarily. Listening to those signals matters. Have you noticed that the body often communicates through subtle changes before louder symptoms appear? Paying attention early can prevent bigger issues later. As this conversation unfolds, the message becomes clearer. Salt isn't something to fear, and it isn't something to overload. It's something to respect. Moderation allows flexibility. It allows meals to nourish rather than restrict. It supports hydration, circulation, and mental clarity without pushing the body to extremes. There's something else worth pausing on here. For many people, food choices later in life carry emotional weight. They're tied to memories, family meals, traditions, and comfort. When too many rules enter the picture, eating can quietly become stressful instead of supportive. Stress around food affects digestion, appetite, and enjoyment. When the body is tense, it absorbs nutrients less efficiently. A calmer relationship with food often supports health just as much as the nutrients themselves. Allowing room for balance can lift that pressure. It creates space to enjoy meals without guilt while still being mindful of health. That emotional ease is part of long-term wellness too. When food tastes good, people eat more consistently. When intake is steady, energy stabilizes. When energy stabilizes, confidence follows. These connections matter more than strict rules. If you're unsure where you fall, that's okay. And curiosity is a better starting point than control. A simple check-in with your provider can bring clarity and peace of mind. And if you've already reduced salt significantly and don't feel your best, that doesn't mean you failed. It means your body may be asking for recalibration. Health after 60 is rarely about doing more. It's often about doing things differently with more awareness and less pressure. Small shifts create the biggest returns when they're sustained. Have you noticed how health feels better when it's supported gently rather than forced? That's not a coincidence. The body responds best to steady care. As you move forward, consider salt as part of a bigger picture. One ingredient among many that work together to support strength, balance, and vitality. Aging isn't about cutting everything down to nothing. It's about learning what truly supports you now. Every day is another chance to care for the body that's carried you this far. Keep learning, keep moving, keep believing in your own strength. Because aging isn't slowing down, it's leveling up. If today's message resonated, take a moment to subscribe, leave a thought in the comments, or share this video with someone who could use a little encouragement. Because together, we're proving that aging well isn't the exception, it's the standard.